Welcome back. Here's where you left off. So it's our 100th episode, Leonard. I'm excited. I didn't think we would get here since September 20th of 2023 when our first episode came out. Do you ever think we would get to 100 episodes?
To be honest with you, I was pretty shocked when you told me that we have to get ready for our 100th episode. And when we started this podcast, our main goal was just talk about books and the books that we've read and do a review out of it. But it never occurred to me that it's going to be, we've been doing this for almost 2 years, no more than 2 years. So I was kind of excited when you mentioned to me we're doing a 100th episode. And I had to go through literally our release episodes. And I was like looking at it, I'm like, holy crap. It is 100.
Yeah, we've reviewed 22 books. We've done 4 specials. We've done 9 book style reviews, another book club style reviews, which means that we just sort of break down the books really detailed by chapters and so forth. So it's been a really fun experience, but it's also been really interesting to go back through and look at the books that we've read over the last 100 episodes, eh?
Yeah, and actually when you posted me that question a few weeks ago, I was like, hey, I'm going to ask you what's the most memorable book that you read while we were doing this podcast. And I literally sat there for a while and trying to think, what is the book that cost me, that literally made me like think that, my God, this is why I love reading books. Right? So it took me a while to go through that. I even went too far back to like books that we haven't really talked about, right? And the books I grew up in and all that stuff, and how I got into reading books, and I started reminiscing why I like this, and for us starting this podcast about book reviews, and it just brings back a lot of like wow. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, when we think about like, why did you want to do this podcast? And basically the simple answer is, well, because Leonard rants sometimes, and I feel like the world should hear
I don't
clearly
rant that much.
how wrong he is most of the time.
Oh, wow.
That's really what I wanted to do.
Statistically, I'm actually a lot more accurate than you in your predictions. So for you,
we do have that argument about who's more accurate in their predictions. I mean, it's funny how we've talked before about this, that I haven't found anybody else on the internet who does what we do, and so we give genuine reactions in the moment, how it happens. We read a couple chapters, we theorize what's going to happen, and sometimes we're wrong, and it's fun when we're wrong. We will be the first people
humans
to admit we were totally wrong at that thing, but when we get it right, boy, you're insufferable, Leonard.
Yeah, well, no, not really, but it's kind of funny though, because when first time we actually talked about doing this podcast, we were like, okay, how are we going to do this? We like to talk about books because I introduced you to Expeditionary Force and told, hey, I need you to read this, and you ended up reading it and come back to me, and we ended up having a very great conversation about the book itself. And that's when we start thinking, it's like, my God, it would be amazing if we can actually do a podcast and just talk about this chapter by chapter, like a book club style.
Yeah, right? we were sitting there for like hours talking about this book, and I was thinking when we were going through, I'm like, you know, we were analyzing it terribly. We were talking about the characters, and we were talking about the plot. And I made some funny stories about how I began the reading and I hated it, and then it turned me around. And so it's kind of a fun story that I don't think we've ever really talked about the very first book of X-Force. We've reviewed a bunch of X-Force books and so forth, but those books for me was sort of how we moved into it. And so we actually reviewed a lot of Craig Allison's books on this channel. And, we'd love to interview Craig as well, to be able to do that, because we value his writing. We think he's a great writer. And we sort of lean towards those books mostly because of his writing style, as well as the thing that's sort of what sort of jumped off the podcast. And I think from a numbers perspective, we've probably review more Craig Allenson books than other types of authors on this channel. Yeah. It doesn't mean we're against it. And in fact, we've recently looked at, expanding that a bit and moving away from that a bit, because one of the things we also talked about is, sort of what our favorite genres are. And, to me, sci-fi is my favorite genre. I just love that genre. And it's sort of what we bonded over to get the podcast started.
Yeah, it's kind of funny though, because for me, growing up, I read a lot of mysteries and thrillers. I never liked reading sci-fi. Don't get me wrong, I love watching sci-fi movies, television, Star Trek. I'm a big Trekkie. I love that. But as soon as it goes to a book genre, I never gravitate to sci-fi. I always gravitate to mysteries, thrillers, and suspense, right? And when we started, when I started reading Expeditionary Force, it's actually my first sci-fi book that I've read. I never told you that. Expeditionary Force was my first sci-fi book I've ever read in my entire life. It's always been thrillers, mysteries, and suspense. That was my jam. That's what I read. I've been reading that since my mom introduced me to that genre when I was like 13, 14 years old, right? And I always loved that. But when I decided I need to find a book because I was commuting back and forth because I lived in the suburbs and I was going downtown Toronto, and I was like, I need a book to read. So I ended up downloading it because I think it was the cheapest book I can find. It was on sale, so I've read it. I'm like, holy crap, this is really good. So that's why I ended up, I read like two more books because I was like way behind. Then I was like, oh my gosh, I think Derek will like this. I ended up giving it to you or telling you, hey, you need to read this. And you ended up reading it and you actually totally liked it. And that's when I started reading more sci-fi, right? But typically because when we do this, when we do an episode, we only read like 3 or 4 chapters, right? And after we read that assignment, our reading assignment, I actually go back to thriller, suspense genre, right? So big time, and I go back and forth, right? And I told Derek that no, I prefer this kind of genre better because I'm more I like that kind of genre, that kind of the way of thinking instead of world building and all that stuff. And we're sort of slowly going to that route now, but at the same time, the sci-fi that we've been reading, Derek, is fantastic because I think we curate the books that we're looking at very, very well. Because I'm not sure if you guys know about this, because every time we look at a book that we read, we actually we tell each other, hey, Derek, I need you to write down a list of books. And I do the same thing too, and we actually compare. And I guarantee you, none of the books that I put listed is not what Derek likes to read, or vice versa. So there's once in a while we find a book that we're like, oh my gosh, that's actually a good book to read. Oh my gosh, we're actually thinking the same way too. So that's why some of the books that we've been reviewing, like about the Black Box of Doom, for example, that was a Derek find. And it has enough stuff that I love to read that we're like, okay, we got to read this, right? So there was those kind of things, and like I'm not sure if you agree with this, Derek, but we curate our book list very, very well. We don't stick in the same genre, but it sounds like we do, but we really don't.
Well, I mean, the reality is that there are some like I said, we do tend to lean towards Craig's stuff a little bit more over the first year or so. The first 3 books we ever reviewed were all the Convergence books that the first 3 books that Craig wrote. We've only actually reviewed a couple of his Expeditionary Force books, which personally I love the series and I'm a big fan of. But we've reviewed a bunch of other stuff, like Chris Hatfield. We've reviewed his stuff. Those are thrillers, sort of history, him melding in history together. We really like those. We've reviewed a couple other ones, like military ones. Like the Terminal List, and we've also done thrillers like 0 Days. We're through here.
0 Days.
Those have been really
favorite.
fun.
Yeah.
You know, and those kind of thriller books are really fun for us. But then we get like plot-driven books that we really love that are really character driven, like Andy Weir books, like The Martian or Project Hail Mary.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't review The Martian on the channel here. We just
No.
reviewed Project Hail Mary, but that was a big book for us on the channel. So it sort of goes hand in hand with sort of how we feel about the channel has gone over the last little while. In fact, what was the genre? Like, what genre don't you prefer? I mean, for me, that I've said that before. I'm not a horror person. I'm not in the horror genre.
Yeah, it's
so that's one I stick away from. Yeah, you're just, but it's one that I just personally stay away from. Like I'll take a romance. I'll take a trashy romance novel every day over a horror novel. Basically, is my approach. So that's how much I dislike the horror genre.
Yeah, for me, like, I don't mind horror. Like, I've read horror before, and I don't mind at all. I kind of like it, but at the same time, like, sorry, I think you just heard my cat there. But for me, horror is one of those things that it's a guilty pleasure for me, right? It's once every couple of years I read something horror-style books like Stephen King or any other horror writers out there. But never actually got into it. It's nice, especially if there's a suspense aspect of it, then I'm definitely into that. But typically, I don't gravitate to fantasy. It's kind of ironic me saying that because we read Convergence. I think that's the closest fantasy I've read. The other closest fantasy I've read so far is, oh man, sorry, Derek, I need you to help me in this one. It's the one I told you about to read, but I never liked reading the second book. He was a wizard detective.
The Dresden Files.
Dresden Files. I borrowed the first book from my friend. I've read it. I love the aspect of it. The way it was written. I love the character itself. It's a very character driven storyline, but it was not my jam. It was just not my thing to read because I got physically bored reading it. Don't get me wrong, the book was good, but I got physically bored reading it because I never liked that genre, right? The other one that I don't really like is that I've been teasing Derek for a while. Like, we should try romance, right? But it never come to fruition because we couldn't find a book that we both like, right? Because
hey, I would like to say to the audience here that I have read Fourth Wing, the series, and you haven't. And any people out there that love this sort of fantasy / romance knows what Fourth Wing is, and I keep on telling you to read it. So I'm ahead of you there.
Again, yeah, it's not my thing. So that's why I'm kind of like, well, hold on, that's a lie. I did read Bridgerton. Because after watching the show, I decided to read the book itself, and I was very intrigued. I was very it was nice. I also read Crazy Rich Asians. The book itself, I read it after I watched the movie, and I prefer the book itself because it's so much more detailed. I totally enjoyed that, and it was actually, I don't want to say it was a comedy romance thing, but it's not a rom-com thing, but it was so well written that I kind of like that kind of genre because it makes you think, right? But typically I try to stay away from it as much as possible. I'm not into it. Again, like I mentioned before, sci-fi was not my top of the list. If you put me a category, sci-fi is practically in the bottom of the list I'm willing to read. Right? That's how ironic it is. How ironic that this podcast started with sci-fi, right? Yeah, so that's what I don't prefer. Like, if you ask me what do I prefer or what I don't prefer, I prefer sci-fi.
Well, so let's switch it a bit here and just go into like authors, right? Because for me, here's the thing. We there are things that we've read together but there are things we haven't read together. Like we both read the Craig Allinson, Andy Weir. We both really enjoy their works. I like William DeFries, and then Dennis Taylor's sort of writings, but they are also on the sci-fi of things, which you haven't read. But then, I'm not a huge Stephen King person. I'm not against Stephen King. He's a great book writer. I just really haven't read as many of his books as other people. But when we're talking about sort of genre smashing, I tend to lean towards more sci-fi, and a good genre smashing is convergence between magic and just, mystery thriller sort of stuff. I would describe convergence to listeners as the adult Harry Potter kind of thing. I think that's an interesting statement. Would you agree with that one?
You're pushing it, but yeah, close enough.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, so what authors do you really enjoy there then? I mean,
like right now I'm currently reading the Black series, and it's by Russell Blake. And to be honest with you, that was his writing was actually very fantastic. I was very surprised because I haven't read his books before, and when I started reading the first Black novel, because we were between trying to figure it out again, because you're not a big fan of this kind of books, so I ended up reading it separately, right? And Russell Blake was actually very good because he has this thing about when he writes about because the Black series is about a detective, right? So he always poses a question. Like, why is this criminal doing it? Why is this? Why is that? So it's a very typical investigation style. It's like, why is this happening, right? And it makes you sit down and relax, and it's like, hey, you got a good point there. Why is this person doing this? But it's sort of like a misdirection, so I kind of like that. The other one as well too that I totally like was what's his name, Chris Hadfield. I was very shocked that he actually wrote kind of books like this, because I thought he's more like a nonfiction style writer. But when he started writing his books, it's almost like an historical, but with a twist. Right, I think we had this debate several times about this. We have this. Well, I mean, I know a lot about the space race and all that sort of stuff, and
he's very knowledgeable. He was a literal astronaut, so who's more qualified to write about this stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
But having said that, he's a Canadian, so hey, great guy. Also, the fact that he weaves actual historical characters and historical events into his books is a fun aspect for me. Mm-hmm. Many people might not gather it. Like, if you don't know the person that he's referring to or the event that he's referring to, maybe you don't get it as much, but it's something I personally really enjoy about his writing style. And when we sort of go on about writing styles, I like more of a character-driven story. That's kind of a stupid statement because all books should be character-driven. But when I mean character-driven, I mean just the character themselves, the person that you latch on to the most, instead of where they're going.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The other one as well too that I do want to highlight as well too is hold on, where's my notes? Here it is. Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware was amazing. This is the same author that wrote 0 Days. That book was fantastic. I love the complexity of the characters she built, and it was just one of those things that it was really nice because I felt part of. I felt like I was watching a show. That's how good. I totally enjoyed that because it was really nice as well. And the other one as well too, I do want to highlight as well too is where is it? Oh, sorry, I gotta go through my notes here. It's the Gray Man series. Is Mark Greaney. Amazing. The Gray Man series, because I'm not sure if you guys know, the Gray Man is actually a book series before it became a TV show, before it became a movie with Ryan Gosling. And if you read the first book was so in depth. It's so, if it's like a modern day James Bond style. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's so well written, so well character driven, and the plot itself is so interweb. My brother actually read the whole series. He actually asked for the rest because he already had like 3 or 4 of them. He went to the rest of it. He asked that for Christmas, so I think my wife ended up getting him that the rest of the series. But it's such a great series and such a great writer. I totally enjoyed that one. And the other ones as well too are like Andy Weir. Can't go wrong with him, in my opinion. That's I fell in love with his writing because of The Martian, because I read the book after I watched the movie, right? And
so what about your favorite, like out of our books that we've reviewed, what's your favorite?
Out of our books reviewed, I'm still a big fan of You Don't Talk About This Black Box of Doom. That's, in my opinion, one of my favorite books. The reason why I'm saying that, Derek, it's not like one of the best out there, right? It's not like the worst out there. If you ask me what we've read so far in this podcast, that's one of the books I've read that it's like up there, including 0 Days. 0 Days was up there too, right? But if you ask me the difference between if you ask me to choose both, which one I like better, 0 Days or Black Box of Doom, I'll go for Black Box of Doom because the character itself is interacts with other characters very well. It's not a very standalone character book. This one is multiple characters. That's why I kind of like it. How about you?
I'm going to say Project Hail Mary. That to me was a phenomenal book by Andy Weir. It had many twists and turns in there, and it did something that not a lot of writers can do, is keeps you off your feet. There were twists in that book that will give people the head shake. And one of the most my favorite plot point in a book that we have read came from Project Hail Mary. And there was not just one. There were multiple things in that book that had plot points that were twists. And there were two major events in the book that I would say that were plot twists, and both of them were phenomenal. And even if he just had one in the book, it would have been great, but he had two. And I mean, if you make the argument, maybe the ending is a third one, perhaps, depending if you saw that coming, maybe the ending. Yeah. But the beautiful thing about is that the ending was a beautiful ending, and we agreed that very wholeheartedly that we thought it was a beautiful ending to a book. It was both character driven, plot driven, everything that you want to line up to the ending of a book. There wasn't any loose threads anywhere. It was wrapped up beautifully. They're making a movie about it now with, as you say, Ryan Gosling.
I'll give you my opinion after
that. Okay, what's your opinion?
Okay, first of all, I do want to add a couple of things as well regarding Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary. The reason why I did not put it on top of the list because it's one of those books that if you I saved that book as one of the best books I've read so far in my entire life. I didn't say. Oh,
you're well, yeah. I mean, I would agree with that statement. For the points that I just made, I would definitely agree with that statement.
The reason why, Derek, I agree with everything you said about this book. The biggest thing about this book that for me is considered one of my favorite books at all time. Like I consider it as a modern day classic. Not like a classic like, Huckleberry Finn or whatever like that, right? Or whatever. But it's one of those books that it makes you think. It makes you see that you're not the only one in the universe. Humans does not monopolize life in the universe, right? It makes you think that way, right? And the way the book was written is in a way that us as humans has to deal with this now to survive, right? And in the book, they end up using whatever technology that they have available to accomplish this mission, right? And the character itself, it was genuine. It was genuine in a way that it's I want to say relatable, but at the same time, what would you do? Would you do the same thing if you are in his position? Right.
That goes back to like sort of my next question, which what was the best twist you loved in a book? And the twists I loved in Project Hail Mary, both of them were just superb. I mean, maybe the second one you could probably see coming, perhaps if you made the argument about just predictable plot points. Somebody might make that argument. I wouldn't agree with them, but I could see their point of view. But basically the twists in Project Hail Mary where, the Grace's relationship with the director is brought into focus and you learn their true relationship between them. That was brilliant writing. And you didn't even know that until like near the end of the book. It was just really cool.
Well, yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I was just thinking about something in that book. Sorry, go ahead.
I was also going to say, and it also has, what was the most unexpected moment in a book for you? And to me, that was also Project Hail Mary, where it was Rocky, and Rocky was like great. And it's strange because when you read the book, you think like you're only gonna get this one character's perspective through the whole book, and then you start introducing a new character halfway through the book. But then that character is the antithesis of how he's going to achieve what he has yet to achieve in his life. And I thought it was great writing. I just can't get away from it.
Yeah.
You know, my props out to Andy Weir. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love The Martian. I thought it was brilliant. In fact, you know, personally, I wish that, you know, the thing against Ryan Gosling, I wish that Matt Damon would have done Project Hail Mary, or like Tom Cruise would have done it. Simply
God,
because
no. Oh my God. I'm going to save my comments later.
Yeah, we have had this argument before, but that's my personal opinion, because Matt Damon did really good in The Martian. I think he would have done really good in this movie too. But hey, it's not what we got.
Okay, so
you know,
you asked me what's my favorite twist.
Twist, yeah, in the book, yeah.
So far, my favorite twist was Hail Mary. I'm not gonna ruin it, but at the end of the book, like literally I think the last few chapters, including the prologue, I was telling my wife that I was crying. I was tearing up. Like, Derek, I was a grown man sitting on the floor reading while cleaning a vacuum cleaner. Okay, I literally stopped, finished the book, and I was tearing up. That's how, like, the whole ending of that book, I did not anticipate. I literally did not anticipate the ending of the book. I was like, if you ask me how I predicted the ending of the book was completely the opposite what I was thinking. Right?
Yeah, that was what I said. That's why I said the third one is a great twist.
It was just one of those things that again, if you put yourself in that situation, would you do the same thing? Right? And that question was posed to the readers.
Yeah.
Right? And
it was good.
It was very nice, right? And my other comment regarding, because before we were recording this I did send you the trailer for this. Right. And here's the funny thing. You already told me that it's going to be Ryan Gosling playing this. The reason why Matt Damon's not playing this, because Matt Damon actually said that I was in Martian. For me, being part of that doesn't make any sense. Right. The reason why I'm not going to bash on Gosling playing this character, based on the trailers I've seen, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be definitely fine. For him, if Tom Cruise playing this movie, I'd rather shoot myself. Okay.
Well, we're agreeing on that.
Yeah.
It should. You know, come on. How's Tom going to run in space? Come on.
I know, right? The whole movie is just him running in space. It's kind of funny because I did show the trailer to the wife. She read the book as well too. She totally enjoyed the book. And when she saw the trailer, and the first thing out of her mouth is like, why don't you just tell us the whole story in the trailer? So she said that to me, and I rewatched it again. And I was like, my spidey sense are tingling, that I'm hoping this is not going to be a flop.
Well, here's the thing. I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna agree with the wife on this. Is that, and to be fair, I actually rewatched it a second time, and to be fair, by the way, our lovely audience, we have very strong feelings about this book, and very much we'll have strong feelings about the movie. But the reality is that what we talked about the twists and so forth in the book, are the thing that I'm worried they won't capture in the movie, because you could capture it in the movie. The strong way that the book opens, the strong way that you learn about certain information during the book, these are the things that make the book great. You can dilute the book down quite easily to something that's generic and whatever. And I guess our hope is that isn't what happens here in doing that. However, here's another interesting, we're talking about medium here and so forth. Who is your favorite character of the books that we've read?
Wow. Holy cow. Okay, this is going to be a little tricky.
I knew you would say that.
For me, damn it. If you
I told you to think about this before the show.
I know, I prefer
you to
not
think
to because
about
I just want to be spontaneous now. I'm just kind of screwing myself. If you ask me what is the best character relationships, I can give you that answer pretty easily. But if you ask me what is my favorite character out there, I can't answer that question.
Okay,
I really
I'll start
don't know how to
off.
answer
I'll
that
start.
question. You go start.
And I'll agree that it's hard. I'm gonna agree with you that's hard. I was split decision between Craig Allen's as Expeditionary Force, the character of Skippy, and then Project Hail Mary's character of Grace. These were the two that I liked the most out of those characters of the books that we've read over the last couple of years. Those characters were very engaging. Both that and one thing I love about a good character is a bit of humor in it. And that's something that both of these characters brought to it, and what the authors put in the writing to give us a little bit more of a jovial atmosphere. Yes, Skippy goes a little too far, I admit it, but Grace is just the right balance of that. Don't you agree?
Yes, I agree with that comment. I don't know. To be honest with you, it's kind of hard for me to answer that question because it's each character we've read so far is very particular to that series of books, right? This is why it's kind of hard for me to answer that question. But if you're forcing me to answer that question, I'll definitely going to be twisting that question to something like, what is the best relationship between characters? If you ask me that question,
that's a completely different question.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Sure,
that's why it's hard for me to answer, because if you ask me that, my favorite relationship.
So answer that question.
Okay, my favorite relationship is actually Joe from Expeditionary Force, Joe and the Psy. Those two were, in my opinion, has one of the best relationship I've read so far that we reviewed in this podcast.
So why? Just because people might be curious.
The reason why is this, though, because Joe and the Psy, who else? Margaret and what's his name? The original four. Kong. Sim was not part of the original. Kong.
Sims.
Those the four characters was the original band of pirates. Original. They're the four person that was captured and they had a relationship with. All four of them. They actually had this amazing character driven relationship that's hasn't been really put up front, but they know every time if you read it, it's there. You see this respect, this familiarity from each other, right? When I can't remember which book now, when the Psy decided he's just going to retire, she's going to stay on Earth, Joe asked her to join him as a favor, and their relationship, while as an executive officer, as first officer, the relationship that they had throughout the whole book was I'm here to do a job. I'm here to make sure you do your job. I'm here to be your friend. At the same time, I am not your friend. Right.
By the way, I just wanted to clarify because sometimes you confuse characters a little bit. Are you confusing Desai with Sims?
No.
Okay, I just want to clarify. No. Okay, all right. Because I would feel like that might have been what you were referring to.
Sim has the same relationship with him, but Desai is a little bit more subtle, right? And when the character Desai was killed, you actually reading the book, you felt the heartbreak that Joe felt, right? We're not talking about other characters dying like he knows very well, like Jeremy and what's his name. This one, you felt it. You felt it in a way that holy crap! I think we talked about this right away. I think it's the first time we talked about that.
I mean, Craig Allenson doesn't typically kill off his main character.
Yeah.
So when he, I think it was I don't remember exactly what book it was. It was well along in the series before he killed her
Yeah, it was
off.
like 3 or 4
And
books in now.
it was a couple books into the series, and then he kills her off, and you and I were basically puddles going, no, he killed off the side. Like we were
Exactly.
hilarious.
Exactly.
It was kind of hilarious. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, that if you ask me that question, which relationship is a lot more meaningful, those two, their relationship in the book, it's not it's there. There's mutual respect and all that stuff. And when she died, the Joe character was heartbroken, right? And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, this relationship was a lot deeper than anything else. So, but
Yeah.
but your original question, who's your best character? I can't answer that question.
You're just not gonna answer it.
I am not going to answer that question, because if I tell you that question, you'd be like, what WTF?
Let's do a mini debate here. Let's do hard books versus audiobooks. What do you think?
We had this conversation several times. We really did have this conversation several times. A lot of conversation. I think we have this conversation every other week. Here's the thing. I've read books, physical books. I've listened to audiobooks, right? If you read the book, you have a tendency to use your own voice, your own inflection, your own thing to tell the story, right? You have to use your imagination. If you're listening to an audiobook, you're relying on the person who's narrating it to provide all that, right? So if you are driving, I expect you to read an audiobook. Okay? If you're jogging down the street, I expect you to listen to an audiobook, right? But if you're sitting on the couch, I'm literally physically reading a book. I really would, right? Because I like having a book and cracking the spine of the book. I'm one of those guys that love cracking the spine of a book. Some people hate it. Like my wife hates me cracking a spine of a book. Even my mom hates it too. Even everyone I know hates me doing that.
I hate you doing that.
You hate me doing that.
For everybody,
I prefer the physical touching a book and cracking the spine when I'm reading it. That, for me, that tells me that I actually enjoy the book. If I end up babying a book, that's when I draw the line. Because you know what? If you're going to baby a book, I want to buy 2 books. One for me cracking the spine, the other one to put it on the shelf. Right? But audiobook-wise, fantastic. I've done audiobooks during long road trips while I'm flying, all that stuff, and it's great. But for me, it's sort of like removing the imagination out of reading a physical book. How about you?
I tend to agree. I don't think I disagree with any of your comments. I think audiobooks are for a specific time and place, and it might also be for people that when they're reading themselves, it's that whole space where if somebody else is reading it to you, you're experiencing it differently than if you're reading it physically. And so it might come down just to personal choice as to, do you prefer the voices in your head versus somebody else's voice in your head?
I prefer my head.
It comes down to the personal preference, depending on what people want to do. Because if you think about some audiobooks and some voices, and you read the book and then you listen to the audiobook and you're like, that's not what that character sounds like. And you have it in your head, right? You've already worked it out. But maybe the author, in working with that voice actor, wanted the character to sound that way. So in a sense, you might get the idea of what the author might have wanted that character to sound like in their head. So I think there is sort of a small benefit of listening to the audiobook where you get the author's perspective, which is sort of what you're going for while reading the book. But definitely reading it yourself has a lot of advantages.
Okay, well, keep it that way then.
So we really want to thank everybody who's listening, and we love the audience. We really appreciate your comments, your feedback, and so forth. So I'm sure you're interested in what's coming up next. So we are going to, the next book that we're going to drop on the channel is Expeditionary Force, Book 18, Gateway. That one's coming out. Then, Leonard, what's the next one we're going to be coming out with?
We are reading... Oh, man, I got to look for my notes again now. Thank you so much. We are reading a new book that actually is coming out now, but we're going to start slowly reading it. It's called The Shackleton Signal by Joshua T. Calvert. Calvert. Thank you. This is actually kind of interesting because it's all about satellites and the moon and all that good stuff. So it's a very interesting sci-fi book that's just came out. So we'll be reading that. After that, we'll be reading another Chris Hadfield book. What's the name of the book again, Derek?
Final Orbit.
Final Orbit. Thank you. I know that. I just forgot about it. Yeah, it's Final Orbit, Chris Hadfield. That's actually kind of interesting too because when we were doing a research on the updating the book list, that actually came out. That came into our list, and we're like, oh, a new Chris Hadfield book. We should put that on the list. So we're gonna put that in the list. That's gonna be after the Shackleton Signal. After that, we'll be doing what's next?
Convergence. Book 5. Book 5. Yeah.
If it comes out. Whenever it comes out.
Yeah. Craig, get moving.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because that the Convergence series is actually kind of interesting. So it's how it ended. We're kind of like, oh, what's next, right? So we can't wait for that one to come out. We also have a few more books in our list that we're still debating on, questioning still, depending on the release dates and all that stuff of the book itself. But we'll keep you posted on that one. But right now, those are 3 books that we're looking at and reading, especially Shackleton Signal, the Final Orbit, and Book 5 of Convergence. That will be for sure for the rest of the year. Again, depending on the release dates. But the others, I think, Derek, we should just keep it a surprise. Because
I think we should do that because surprises are good. You could just join into the channel and look what's coming up next and have an idea of what's happening and just be like, oh, I didn't know about that book. Let's read it along with us. And we enjoy when you guys read along with us because your feedback is great. We hope you enjoy what we do, the genuine reactions that we get, and even sometimes when we get it wrong. Join us next time as we review chapters 21 through 26 of Expeditionary Force, Book 18, Gateway. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share a review. We love to hear from you. Send us an email at yourbookmarksinfo@gmail.com. Join us again right here where you left off.